This afternoon, Shuwaski Young is with us. Good morning, sir. How are you on this Monday?
Paul, I'm doing quite well on this solar eclipse day. Good morning, and thank you so much for having me back on the show. How are you?
Certainly. I mean, how are you gonna do this? Are you gonna celebrate it, or are you gonna grab moon pies out? By the way, Lance, on these moon pies,
Yes, sir.
do they come with a complimentary dose of RC?
It would have been appropriate if they did, but no, they did not come with an RC.
Can you
Cola.
buy RC out there, any Royal Crown Cola anymore?
I hope so. That's some good stuff.
I'm not sure exactly what happened to RC, but they fell out of favor somewhere many years ago. So there you go. All right, let's talk about the story number one and Representative Jackson. Kind of give me the background of the story, Shuwaski. Exactly what happened, and where are we now with that story?
So, I live in District 45, which encompasses Winston County, Kemper County, Lauderdale, and the Neshoba counties, which is where Representative Jackson actually represents. And lo and behold, like many folks within the district, I'm watching the local news channel and watching the news and all that good stuff. And there it pops up and, immediately raise alarm bells throughout the entire district. Our particular representative was indicted for receiving stolen property, which is a state felony that basically carries, I believe, a penalty of, if convicted on, I believe, May 28th is their arraignment date, 0 to 5 years in prison, or 0 to a $10,000 fine if convicted, or both. So we're in a bit of a pickle with having representation that is going to be effective in Jackson. So that's why I spoke about it and talked about it, and I thought that it was something that was very important for the folks of District 45.
Has he issued a statement as far as the request to resign?
My understanding is that he has not. I have not seen one. I know that many folks have tried to reach out to him to get his opinion on the matter. And at this to a point, no avail. That has not happened.
I think most people are understanding that if he did resign, would you be a candidate? And the answer to that is possibly yes.
The answer to that would be possibly yes. Absolutely. I think that it's common knowledge here in Mississippi. I have been trying for quite some time to become a player in either our federal process or state process. And if the opportunity comes from a state legislative process, we'll consider that as well, too.
In all fairness to Representative Jackson, he's just been indicted. He hasn't been convicted yet. You said the indictment would be, or the hearing is in May?
May 28th is what I remember reading.
So it's after the legislative session, then we have the summer to look at this and possibly an election. What does the Constitution, state Constitution, say about this?
Well, in the event that a representative, in this case, Representative Jackson, actually vacates his seat, then a special election will be called by the governor, and then the folks of District 45, we get an opportunity to vote for a new representative for that particular area. But there would need to be a special election called by the governor.
So we're probably, depending on how it comes out the latter part of May, probably not going to know anything until it goes to trial. Is there any idea when that would go to trial?
I am not sure to that point. I guess that would be up to the docket of the courts in that particular area, but I'm not sure. Hopefully before the Neshoba County Fair.
Well, I have no idea how fast that would be taken care of by the court system. Any particular bills that you are tracking as we leave that story behind? Any other bills that you are tracking that you want to bring some spotlight to?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think one of the things that has been on the forefront for many folks here in Mississippi is also the ballot measure that seems to have died in the particular Senate. For 3 straight years, the state has tried to pass a law to put the ballot measures back into the hands of the people. It seems that particular initiative is going to be dead now. It also seems that ethics reform, campaign finance reform have also pretty much been gutted and also will probably die in the Senate and also in the House in this particular legislative session. Those particular points aside, I think the biggest matter that we have happening right now is the conversation around Medicaid expansion. And from what I have read and I have been following, Speaker of the House, Jason White, has made extraordinary efforts to work with the Senate in order to get a bill approved that will pass the smell test. It seems like the work requirement is something that's going to be a stickler in that particular process. So we'll see what happens. I know that they're meeting in conference over the course of the next 2 weeks. 3 folks from the House that are being appointed by Speaker White, and also 3 folks from the Senate that'll be appointed by Lieutenant Governor Hoseman to see if they can hash it out in conference and see if Mississippi can get a bill for Medicaid expansion.
Do you have a problem with the working requirement on here for the working poor? I mean, this is how the bill is labeled for the working poor. So I guess they would be working, and the salary's just not enough.
So I think that right now that's going to be a definitely challenge. As far as my position on the matter, I don't particularly side with a work requirement being part of it. I do think that it's a good thing, but it depends on exactly how that's actually laid out. Will it affect everyone in the same exact way? And I think what's also really good about this particular way in which that the Speaker of the House is approaching this particular bill is that letting folks know that the managed care agencies, as I understand, will still be required to collect data on those particular individuals that are could potentially be in the Medicaid expansive system. They'll have the data after 4 years of this particular bill. And there's also a repeal effect in this bill as well, too. It's not automatically set and done state law for forever. So they'll be able to know, how many people were on it, how many people had jobs, how many people had more than one job if they didn't have a job at all, and how that's affecting the state budget. And finally, I think that as he has stated, it's very clear that this is pretty much what makes dollars and cents is the way in which they're going about this, not so much from the standpoint that, we got to get everybody on Medicaid that needs to be on Medicaid, which is something that I think that they really want to do.
Well, if you put politics aside, and if it doesn't cost us anything, and if it is a good idea, and if there is a sunset, and if we go back and see, is this helping get some of those people healthier, and are they taking advantage of all of these ifs on here? But there's one big thing that people are not paying attention to. If you want to make things better in the state, is that going to help or hurt the figure that we're number one in, and that is employable people who are out of the workforce and don't want to go to work? And I don't mean 14-year-olds. I don't mean senior citizens. I don't mean those with disabilities. I don't mean those who are blind or can't work or infirm. I mean people who are workable age and are able-bodied, and they've dropped out of the workforce, and they are below the poverty line because of that, and they want the people who are working to pay for their insurance. And that's where we have a problem with. Is this going to help that or hurt that, that figure? Because when the nation looks at us, they point us on the next project out there. Do they have enough of a workforce? They're number one in the availability of able-bodied people not working. So how do you justify those two things?
Well, the work requirement may very well be the way in which the state can actually, provide some type of quality assurance that does be the case with having people that are weighing down the actual system. I absolutely agree with you. If folks are able and physically able and in their health to be able to go to work and they're of age, they should actually be going to work, and the rest of society should not be paying for those particular people. That's good for the state. That's good for families. That's good for communities. And I think that's the way we actually should be looking at it.
Yeah, and well, you gave me two different answers there, because either you put it in as a requirement, but if you put it in as saying, okay, the House side basically said we're going to put it in there, and I believe the House side said 20 hours a week. You have to work at least 20 hours a week. The Senate side put it in 30 hours a week, which is just a little bit more, but theirs is mandatory. The House says, we put it in there, but if you don't accept it, we'll still go without it. So that's the differences in the two bills for the most part.
Right. And I think that maybe they find themselves in the middle, being able to agree, and maybe that's what this upcoming conference over the course of the next 2 weeks may be able to do. But I hope that is not going to be something that doesn't allow the bill to actually get passed and potentially signed by the governor. I know that his particular position is not one of which of expanding Medicaid, but we'll see how they work that out.
That's another one. We got interesting bills here. Two Senate bills that are moving through the legislature that would impose mandatory minimum sentences for vehicle theft crimes. The House has a version, and the Senate has a version, and very, very interesting because you've got different points of view within the Republican Party on this one. We'll talk about that when we come back in just a moment. Talking about is Senate Bill 2174, 2175, both in the Senate. And they really come down heavy. And again, there's some disagreement between the House and Senate. When I say this, is because every case is different, regardless of the ethnicity, the gender, where the kids, youngsters from. Was it the first time this happened? Did he just or she fall into bad friends in the last 6 weeks? There's so many different cases. When you take it out of the judge's hand and put it into a mandatory bill, I just never have liked that because there are individual situations. Senate Bill 2174 led to a sentence of not less than 5 years. You've got to be in prison for 5 years, not more than 20 years, a fine of about $10,000, first offense for a motor vehicle theft. Second and subsequent offenses could result in the sentence of not less than 10 years and not more than 40 years in prison. The measure passed the Senate by a 48-4 vote. And then there's one that has deals in possessing or receiving stolen property with a combined value of at least $25,000. The Senate has a subsection in there. Those crimes would have resulted in a felony with a maximum sentence of 20 years, fine of about $10,000. The bill passed the Senate by 46-6. Now, the controversy is when it came to the House Judiciary B Committee removed those mandatory minimums and passed the legislation on the full chamber for consideration. And there is some dispute there. Those type of things should be left to the judge. Your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing was just I heard you say that was quite very interesting that it goes before the Judiciary B Committee in the House and Senate. Well, Representative Keith Jackson actually sits on that committee, so hopefully if he gets out of there, we can talk more about how we can make this better.
Wow.
You know? he actually sits on that.
I didn't think about that. It all comes together.
It does. Maybe it's a solar eclipse, but in all seriousness, this is a problem. I agree with you that all cases are very different, and that's what makes the judiciary and judges who sit on these seats very important. For them to be able to not only apply the law in cases, but also be able to make certain judgments about whether or not a person should be receiving such a severe sentence, because it is different. These are not potentially repeat offenders. It could be a first-time offender. And putting someone in prison for that amount of time, not only, I think, could be viewed as a bit harsh and rigid, but it also comes down to the cost and sense of the matter. How much is it actually taking us as a state to pay for someone in prison on a year basis? And what could that mean when you're doing that across the board in all 82 counties?
That's never
so I don't agree with
too much. What gets me about the situation is that if this is a repeat offender, if he or she has a long record of this one, throw the book at him. That's fine. 20, 25 years, whatever it happens to be. If you have the degree of that, was it with a gun? Did you shoot somebody? Was somebody harmed in there? Was there a baby in the backseat? All of these different things like that can be mitigated to the severity of the crime itself. And you cannot, I don't think, pass legislation based on there may be a bad judge or a lenient judge somewhere. You shouldn't be doing that. But if it's the first time offense of something, putting a kid in prison for a minimum, and I say kid, let me put young adult or adult, in prison for the first time for 5 years, probably not going to come out of that prison any better.
Well, they certainly probably won't. I don't think that's an opportunity for someone to just go in and be completely rehabilitated on something that they did just one time. There's no pattern of behavior that says that this is such a person that is likely to do it again. So I think there needs to be more leniency in the law, and legislators should really consider that.
Now, a judge could do that at 5 years and probably reduce it down to 1, and to stick somebody in a prison for 1 year or 1 week or 1 month, they'll have a come to Jesus moment if this is the first time they've been in prison. So Just
And
some
quite
of them
frankly,
do.
this is the power of our legislatures, you know, who actually make the laws, and the judiciary has to follow it. So I think that's
Yeah,
also why it's
well,
very important.
that's why they go through all the minutia and all the conferences in the House and the Senate, then the governor's veto. So the checks and
Yeah.
balances there are pretty good, and hopefully this one will come out the right way. I always think back to that
Hopefully so.
85% rule. I remember the 85% rule, and everybody was on board, and all of a sudden this conservative guy on radio was saying, that's not a good idea. Let the judges take care of this. If he needs to serve or she needs to serve 85%. Then all of a sudden we had people overflowing in the jail system, some of them
Right.
that should not have been there. So that's the experience that I take to this particular story. Shuwaski, thank you,
Right.
sir. Appreciate it very much. I know you'll be following the Jackson story, so if you have any updates, let us know.
Thank you so very much for having me on, Paul. Always enjoyed